Hello, my friends. Today is the 13th of December 2024, and I'm going to talk about the renovation of Notre Dame Cathedral. I have been watching a few videos. I haven't been there to see it, obviously. I have just watched videos of it, and I've watched interviews with the main renovator, and quite a few videos on that. So all I can see is what I see in the videos, right? Now, this is Notre Dame was burnt on the 15th of April 2019, and the official opening now of the restoration was the 7th of December of this year. My first reaction was surprised. I had been quite worried about it. I had expected much worse. But I think the renovation was not as aggressive a change as I was dreading. Mainly because the things that have been changed are things that can be changed again, or substituted, or replaced again. So it's not there eternally, as it were. I had expected the worst, because after the Olympic Games and all that, I thought that it was going to be worse. But I think they sort of contained themselves. You know, the old thing in politics, shock and awe and so on. So, no, I think they have applied the principle of 2 or 3 steps forward and then one retreat, one backwards, to let that shock and awe rest for a little while. This is what I mean. Okay. I think that perhaps after the reaction to the Olympics and all that, they perhaps realized that they didn't have as much of a free hand to do whatever they wanted. But nevertheless, because they are increasingly putting into everything sacred, all these sacred, or what should be treated as sacred, they are sort of emptying all these mental execrations. They are displays and manifestations of bad taste. All they had to do, and there were many videos and photographs of the cathedral, all they had to do really was to replace what had been there. They didn't have to come up with new artistic ways and introducing 21st century art into an 12th century Gothic cathedral. Notre Dame is there from the 1100s. We'll talk about that in a second. Just to give you the Notre Dame has been restored quite a few times. The last time was in the 19th century by Eugene Viollet-Le-Duc. It had been destroyed during the French Revolution, as you would expect. And what he did was to restore what had been there, okay? The thing that I noticed, first of all, in the videos, at any rate, was the excessive light. The excessive, I don't suppose it's neon lights, but too much light. Now, I do not think that a cathedral should be in the dark, but the light in a cathedral or a Catholic place of worship has to come from, first of all, the light, natural light from the windows, yes. And of course there will be lights here and there will be candles, but this excessive light is not artificial light, is not inducive to a religious service. It's not inducive to meditation. It's not inducive to, okay, you're there in a religious service and you have to be able to recollect yourself unto yourself. You cannot do that because you cannot even think when you have a light right here, you know. That is what interrogators use, police, you're accused of a crime and there they are with a light, you know, asking you questions because you can't think, because you're confused, your mind is not working for it. So in a religious temple, the lights, artificial lights, have to be somewhat subdued. So that was the first thing I noticed. Perhaps it was just the video, I hope so, because it was so much light that I thought, my God, this looks like a casino, okay? Now, the second thing, and that is why I say that not everything is so bad, is that the things that they actually changed can be replaced or substituted. For example, they treated them as furniture. You know, the chairs, the tabernacle, several other things, the baptismal font, all that. They can be substituted or replaced. There was nothing broken, let's say, in the wonderful structure of this absolutely gorgeous, wonderful Gothic cathedral. But there are decisions that have been taken which I think were in bad taste. Lack of judgment, lack of not knowing the language. Restoration of a religious monument is an art in itself. First, what you have to do is to read the building. Read the building. What do I mean? What is it there for? What was it that made it into what it is? A Catholic, however an artist he may be, cannot successfully restore a Buddhist temple, for example. Why? He doesn't know the language. It's not just the art or the craftsmanship. You have to know what gave rise to that building as it is. The Ave Maria doesn't sound the same if you hear it from a professional opera singer who is, I don't know, Protestant, for example, or nothing, and you hear it sung by Pavarotti. He understands the language, the others don't. Or Gregorian chant, or the old mass, for example. Now, that wonderful Gregorian chant, you hear it in concerts, or you hear it in records, recordings. It is not the same. It is not. Miserere. No, it's all wrong. Miserere nobis. And the ending is always softer. Why is that? Find out. A person who knows what the reason for that is able to sing it in a different way. Haven't done very well here, but you understand. So when an architect approaches a project of this time, first you have to read the language and the building. You have to see what ideology or what religion or whatever it was that prevailed there beforehand. They tell us that fire provoke the fire, and many people think that it was arson. There is a little bit of a dark history here. Before I go on to Notre Dame itself, let me tell you about what is happening in France, because it doesn't seem as if it was an accident. I'm reading here from several articles. Listen to this. Why France is losing one religious building every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks there is something in France happening to a religious, usually cathedrals or churches. Notre Dame is not the only one. Notre Dame was the number 13th in a very short period of time. Let me read this. This is an article, Rome Newsroom, May 4th, 2021, by Solène Tadier. And it says, one religious building is disappearing in France every 2 weeks. That is the conclusion of Edouard de Lamasse, president of the Observatoire de Patrimoine Religieux, the Observatory of Religious Heritage in Paris. He is raising the alarm in the French media about the gradual disappearance of religious edifices in a country known as the eldest daughter of the Church, because the Frankish king, Clovis I, embraced Catholicism in 496 officially. Lamasse's appeal for increased awareness came after a fire destroyed the 16th century church of Saint-Pierre in Romilly-la-Pouthenaille, Normandy, northern France. The fire, deemed accidental, took place on April 15th, exactly 2 years after the blaze that devastated Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The unforgettable image of the burning cathedral, which circled the planet in 2019, pointed to a deeper issue within French society: serious shortcomings in the preservation system of religious monuments, coupled with increasing hostility toward religion. Lamasse told CNA in an interview that in addition to one religious building disappearing every 2 weeks, by demolition, transformation, destruction by fire, or collapse, 2/3 of fires in religious buildings are due to arson. While these statistics include buildings belonging to all religious groups, most of them concern Catholic monuments, which still represent a large majority in France, where there are roughly 45,000 Catholic places of worship. Quote, although Catholic monuments are still ahead, one mosque is erected every 15 days in France, while one Christian building is destroyed at the same pace. Lamas said it creates a tipping point on the territory that should be taken into account. Lamas believes that on average, more than 2 Christian monuments are targeted every day. 2/3 of these incidents concern theft, while the remaining third involved desecration. There is something about Ireland here. They're going through several countries. You better check yours. In Ireland, Irish authorities investigating stabbing of Catholic chaplain as possible terror incident. According to the most recent figures from France's Central Criminal Intelligence, that other thing that I got the document, and it seems that will direct. That was to the thing about Ireland was to direct me to another article. Okay, I'll continue with the article. According to the most recent figures from France's Central Criminal Intelligence Unit, 877 attacks on Catholic places of worship were recorded across the country in 2018 alone. 877. These figures have increased fivefold in only 10 years, Lamas said, noting that 129 churches were vandalized in 2008. At the beginning of the 1970s, writer and journalist Michel de Saint-Pierre published a book entitled Église en ruine, Église en péril, Churches in Ruin, Endangered Church, in which he already sounded the alarm. But the situation has heightened tenfold or even hundredfold since then. Currently, 5,000 Catholic buildings are potentially in danger of disappearing. Apart from the growing hostility to which they are subject, these religious sites are also suffering from deep negligence on the part of public authorities. This state of affairs is partly explained by the fact that, by virtue of the 1905 law on the separation of the church and the state, municipalities became the owners of France's religious buildings. In many cases, they have been unable to meet the costs of maintaining the sites. These buildings have not been maintained for over a century, and they have never been subject to restoration work or protection measures against theft or fire, Lamas said. He explained that only 15,000 Catholic sites are officially protected as historical monuments, while the other 30,000 buildings are practically left to decay. Lamas argues that another significant and emblematic example of the mismanagement of this heritage is St. Ouen Abbey, a jewel of Gothic architecture belonging to the city of Rouen in Normandy. Quote, this abbey church is endowed with a foret, the church's distinctive style of roofing, that is even bigger than that of Notre Dame. It is a pure marvel, and yet there is no alarm system of any kind. It is another candidate for destruction. It is enough to make you cry. He continued, fires are also sharply increasing because buildings are more and more dilapidated, and this negligence also attracts a lot of thefts of paintings, statues, or gold chalices. Although French cathedrals benefit from special status and are owned by the state, they have not been spared in the wave of fires that have hit Catholic sites in recent years. The blaze at Notre Dame de Paris in 2019 was preceded by a fire at the Cathedral of Sainte-Hélène of Lavaur in Tarn, southern France. I'm having to approach it. The type is very small. And followed by fires at the Cathedral of Rennes and Nantes in 2020. The current Minister of Culture is seeking to establish a protection charter, but the situation is extremely serious, and alas, I don't see any real awareness growing, nor any sense of responsibility in the face of this crucial challenge for our national heritage, Lamas said. In fact, beyond the religious aspect, it is our country's culture that is at stake here, as these jewels of art and architecture are an integral part of the spirit and greatness of France. And if we keep going like this, one day our heritage will be completely destroyed. We will lose everything. There is another one. French church urged to act against constant attacks. A Rwandan refugee and church volunteer has confessed to setting the blaze that destroyed Nantes Cathedral's grand organ. Long history here about it. Another article, France Epidemic of Church Attacks, by Tom Colsey. He says, once a week, before the iconic staple building of the Ile de la Cité in Paris was engulfed by flames in April 2019, with its fate uncertain for the duration of the blaze, as fears of a total structural collapse were held, an article in The Times was published documenting the growing prevalence in spades of unprovoked desecration, vandalism and violence at France's Catholic holy places. These include, but are by no means limited to, a fire deliberately ignited earlier that year at the church of Saint Sulpice. That's a beautiful church, is perhaps second, well, my opinion, second to Notre Dame. Fire too, okay? Where human excrement smeared on a cross and on the walls of the Notre Dame des Enfants church in Nîmes, another city, and significant vandalism at the Basilica of Saint-Denis, where France's past monarchs are almost all buried. Today, another incident has been added to the list as the Saint-Pierre et Saint-Paul Cathedral in Nantes burns. The fire was initiated in 3 different locations. Once again, it is confidently suspected to be arson. In order to understand France's epidemic of church attacks, the French context plays a key role. Notre Dame de Paris had itself been a target in notable foil terror plots shortly prior. In 2016, Muslim women: Inès Madami, 19, Sarah Hervouet, 23, and Amel Sakou, 39, were brought before court over a plot to detonate a car parked with explosives besides the famous cathedral in its car park. During the raid in which they were arrested, Hervouet stabbed a police officer while Mardani was shot in the leg after attempting to charge another. Predictably, all three were later convicted and sentenced. According to the BBC, Hervouet herself had prior relationships with French jihadist Larosse Aboula, who killed a police officer and his wife near Paris that June, and Adèle Kermiche, one of the two men who murdered an elderly Catholic priest in northern France. You remember that incident? He was 80-something years old. The aforementioned Catholic priest was defenseless. 84-year-old Father Jacques Hamel, murdered in his church, Saint Etienne de Rouvray, near Rouen. He was warmly accounted by local nuns as a man who loved all people regardless of religion, and a faithful priest, a priest who loved everybody, who loved much. Okay. In fact, later the same year as these events, in 2016, it was reported that Islamist terror plots had become so prevalent that the French state was foiling them daily, and that over 10,000 citizens had been identified as high risk. Many such plots were targeted at Christian holy sites and churches. Sid Ahmed Glam foiled plans to conduct mass shootings at churches during Sunday Mass, being a prime example of this. There is a problem in France, and Christians are expected to look the other way and ignore it. Okay, I'll go back. Regardless of who the culprits are and whether people struggle to accept the recurrence of coincidental accidents, in inverted commas, all occurring in France, in which religious and race relations are fast deteriorating. I don't think it's just, I don't think it's one particular group of people. But further incidents include the vandalism of Notre Dame de Dijon in February 2019, the arson attack at Notre Dame de Grace in Aiguillers, Provence, on Easter Sunday 2019, the desecrating of the tabernacle and 5-time robbing of the Saint Pierre Church in Montfaucon, Auvergne, between 2018 and 2019, the burning to the ground of Saint Jacques Church in Grenoble, Rhône-Alpes, in January 2019, the arson attack at the Saint Pierre de Matrois Church in Orléans, with Allahu Akbar graffitied on its surviving walls in July 2019. I don't know what Allahu Akbar means. Anyway, another one, the vandalism of the holy font and placing of the Quran by the chopped-off arm of a broken statue by a Syrian woman with an axe at the Church of St. Mary Magdalene in Béziers in April 2017. A whole list. Okay, so you can see that this is a problem, and I don't think, let me see, France, religious figures vandalized in Lavore Cathedral. At least 10 incidents of vandalism and desecration of Catholic churches have been reported across the Channel since the beginning of February. French Roman Catholic newspaper La Croix Internationale reported how the attacks on churches took place across France. Senseless acts included the desecration of altars, the defacing of Christ on the cross, and, in an extreme case, human excrement being spread across the walls of a holy place of worship. According to the outlet, one of the first attacks was on February 4th at St. Nicholas Catholic Church in Ouille, Yvelines, where a statue of the Virgin Mary was found smashed on the ground. The same church also had the altar cross thrown to the ground, and the celebrant's chair was damaged. On February the 5th, an altar cloth was found burnt, and crosses and statues torn down or disfigured at the recently refurbished Saint Helene Cathedral in Lavore, in south-central France. The fire was found early by a parish secretary and did not spread, but the altar and adjacent walls were badly damaged by smoke. Following the incident, local district deputy Jean Terrier said in a statement, "I strongly condemn the vandalism of Lavore Cathedral, and I share the outrage aroused by this intolerable act." On February the 6th, just a day after the Saint Helene Cathedral incident, vandals at Notre Dame des Enfants, Our Lady of the Children Church in Nîmes, broke into the tabernacle and scattered altar hosts on the ground. According to local news reports, the vandals also drew a cross on the wall with human excrement, that seems to be the thing to do, and damaged other religious items in the church. Bishop Robert Watebled of Nîmes said of the senseless attack, "This greatly affects our diocesan community." Is that all you have to say? Oh my goodness. A day later, on February the 9th, a similar attack occurred at the Church of Notre Dame de Dijon, Côte d'Or, about 175 miles southeast of Paris. The tabernacle was opened and the Eucharist scattered, while the altar cloth was soiled and a sacral missal was torn. And so on and so on. Okay. So, let me... not to the same extent, but similar things are happening in Canada. Similar things are happening in the United States, not to this extent. So you better check in your own country, because it is harsh, and we don't know what's going on. Okay, so it is not a coincidence that in the same week that the fire happened in Notre Dame, 12 other churches vandalized by fire too. Notre Dame was the 13th in that same week. Number 12 was nothing more, nothing less than Saint Sulpice. Is the second church in size in Paris. It's a beautiful, mysterious church that actually housed the Society, the Company of the Holy Sacrament, one of the most amazing ones in Paris. in short, there is a thing going on here, right? So, in the actual cathedral, Notre Dame Cathedral itself, I went to look at what an architect was saying about, not about the religious significance of what happened, but the fire and so on, what happened. And he says, what's really happening was not only, for example, on the roof, not only the fusion of a quantity of lead, it was an alchemy work. Like many buildings in Paris from a certain period, during the restoration in the 19th century of Eugene Viollet-Le-Duc, and late 19th century, early 20th century. In those, at that time, Paris used a lot of metal roofs in which there was a lead alloy, and therefore the fire created a massive melting of lead that he says, I don't know what they did with that, because of course behind these dark movements there are always secret actions. He was talking for a long time about how whoever, he doesn't believe it was an accident, first of all. He believes that that was arson and someone perpetrated it, and they knew the combination of, you know, the metals and so on used in the buildings. But in any case, having said that, and so that we know a little bit about where we are coming from here and to what we are being exposed, at the very least in this restoration I find poor quality decisions. The decisions rather mediocre, and I think that it's because they don't speak the Catholic language. Because look, when you want to carry out a project, a contribution to restore a great monument, first of all you have to be very brave, to attempt it. But to enter into a project such as this, to work on these monuments, you have to come in with the idea of, look, if you're going to insert 21st century motives, you really, it's better if you don't, but if you do want to, you really have to know what you are doing and what you are doing it to. You either have to do that with, if you want to insert modern things, with an absolute respect for what the building signifies, so that it blends into a whole. Or if indeed you want, first of all, just repair it as it was, with absolute respect for what it is and what it means. Or if you want to introduce something new, it better be really an admirable creation, a true work of art, But what you cannot do is to put there some little pieces here and there of what looks like simple furniture, which is what this person has done. Just out of place. They look out of place. They are made apparently of bronze, darkened bronze. Apparently, more about this in a moment. But they look as, at first sight, they look as if it's something that you could put in your patio center, in your garden. At first glance, that is what they look like. A series of symbolic elements have been placed there. For example, the baptismal font. It looks as if it is a sort of a miniature bathtub. It appeared that it was perhaps something made out of black basalt or something like that, but no, it's bronze. Very intense bronze. But it really does look as a modern bathtub in miniature. With a finish, something. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Macron went there with while they were working on it, and afterwards, and they admired it very, very much. They took a walk about Notre Dame, and they said, "Oh." What Mrs. Macron said was, "Oh, they have turned carbon into a work of art." They've turned carbon into a work of art. She or he could have perhaps chosen a different way, chosen carbon. They turned carbon into a work of art. It sounds like alchemy to me. First we are going to carbonize it. And then we are going to make art from here. Let's carbonize it so we can see the light after that. Okay. So, what do I like and what do I not like? First, these pieces of furniture. Now, there is a lot of work and many books written by Eugene Viollet-Le-Duc, who's the one who restored it. Yeah, but this new designer, his name is Monsieur Eugene Baldett. That's the name of the artist. When he was asked, I saw the interviews, when asked about the work of and the restoration of Viollet-Le-Duc, he said that he didn't want to go the same route. He said that, first of all, that he's a non-believer, okay, and second, that this was supposed to be a monument of humility and simplicity, and that we had to forget all, everything else. Humility and simplicity. It is, a lazy answer. Equivalent to, if you're a Christian, you have to turn the other cheek, whatever it is that I do to you, you're supposed to be humble. That is not understanding the Catholic feeling of wanting the best for God, and that it's not understanding the language again. A lot of French Catholics actually blame the coldness. They find it cold, not in terms of the temperature of the building, but it's like walking into I don't even want to say museum, like walking into a desecrated church is the coldness, the frigidity of all those elements that they have introduced, if you can see them. The altar, cold, no warmth there. The chairs, the Archbishop chairs and the other chairs, the coldness, the distance regarding traditional Catholic worship. What he said was Notre Dame. Also, he said, Notre Dame, in any case, is, visited by millions of people who have no idea what the Catholic liturgy is, and therefore it can't just be solely a Catholic thing. My goodness. Many people visit it, so turn your religious temple into a museum. What kind of logic is that? It's just not being able to read the room at all. I don't think that it was purely his decision. I think he was chosen by some people, and he was paid by those people, and he was given guidelines. I don't know whether he even understands how out of touch he is. It is, in any case, an ignorant answer. Is a Catholic Church a museum? If you're going to change churches into museums, you're actually disguising the effort that what you want to do is to remove the religious significance from them. The tabernacle, oh my goodness. It looks, well, it's black almost. It looks like a sarcophagus. The tabernacle. And it's installed in the ancient altar, the old altar, against the before Vatican II, before they removed the altars. Well, they just put tables there. This is in the old altar. It looks like something out of a terror movie, a gory movie. Bronze, dark. Okay, so this artist, so-called artist, Eugene Viollet-Le-Duc, said to have been very carefully chosen by one of the bishops, one Bishop Ulrich. I doubt there will be other people here. So there is kind of strange things. I mean, do you remember, it comes to mind at the moment, the portrait of King Charles, which was also kind of weird a little bit. What's this? What is going on? Who are these guys who are creating this art? These painters and sculptors, and they are, as I said, the executors, I think, of something, and they follow precise orders or instructions of those who pay. So the artist is the one who carries out the work, but obviously he's, as I said, following guidelines. Who is giving them these guidelines in these restorations occurring all over the place? Because the churches are being burned down. We are at this difficult moment when every day in the history of the Catholic Church there is one thing after another thing after another thing, another stumbling block, another hurdle, one more attack, one more thing. But let us remember that we are under the aegis of the occupant at the moment in the Vatican. Have no problems. I have said before, look, remember, one pope, one papacy, or the church under one pope is not eternal. This papacy is not eternal. Okay? I'm not surprised that these barbarities and atrocities appear. Because, look, if we build a new church, completely new church, like the one built, there is one example here of one built in France by Henri Courvoisier. He built a chapel. He built a religious building of our own time. Everything was modern, okay? He representing the 21st century, okay? You can actually accept it more or less. You can accept it or not, but it might be very beautiful or it might be barbaric, but that is a modern church. It will be a church, this one that he built, it will be a church signifying the 20th century. A new type of Christian religious building. The whole thing is new and modern. Okay, you can like it or not, but that is representing the 20th and the 21st century. But that is not at all valid, both from a religious and an artistic point of view. And will never be, what will never be valid, is to insert elements that are totally modern and they actually look like cheap furniture supermarket items. The chairs for those officiants, for example, they really look like something for to put on a terrace or a cafe or a resort somewhere, and transplant that into this wonderful Gothic church. Because you have to create a whole. The different things have to go together. In this case, that wasn't done. It appears something without a plan, helter-skelter, this chair here, okay, they all look the same, then the other thing there. You have to have an overall whole that speaks the same language. However, thank God for small mercies. If one day it needs changing, they will be easy enough to replace. The advantage of it is that if someday one realizes that all those chairs and that tabernacle and that baptismal font, perhaps one day we'll realize that they stick out like a sore thumb there. And we will be able to replace them. That is what I said. The good news is that that is possible. We can say, no, we don't want that anymore. That was badly done. The approach should have been, we are going to give the cathedral what a cathedral from the 12th century deserves. Notre Dame and Saint Sulpice, both renovated by Viollet-Le-Duc, have a great story behind. And he has actually the very best book ever written on Gothic, Amiens and Reims and Carcassonne. The redesign of the cathedral in Carcassonne, for example, which is spectacular, with the language from the stained glass windows of Saint-Chapelle, another one of those beautiful buildings. And so when he takes Notre Dame, destroyed during the French Revolution, as I said, destroyed with all the sculpture work, the images of the saints decapitated, in short, all the barbarities they did there. There are still photographs from that time of the original estate of the cathedral. but nothing to do with what we have now. Le-Duc restored the sacred language, the connectivity of the whole cathedral, that which makes, when you go there, the place truly sacred. And those chairs that look like they came from IKEA don't do it. As I said, French Catholics have protested against it. They talked about the coldness, the emptiness, the absence of the sacred. That is, I guess it represents the post-conciliar liturgy taken to its maximum expression. That is cold and without any type of liturgical warmth. And the French are saying that it conveys nothing. All they had to do was to put back what had been there. No new interventions needed, just to replace, the chairs. What did the chairs look like? Like this? Okay. An observation. The Macron government started, this is not the only thing, started a round of restorations on Christian heritage monuments in France. And one can see the destruction under the pretext that they are restoring very special monuments. I went to this particular artist and architect, and he talks about, I won't go into that because I don't quite understand it, but he talks in great detail about what they are doing to the stone, the grinding of the chipping of the stone, a very fine grinding that apparently, and here I don't know what I'm talking about, apparently removes all the crystalline layers, he says. Okay, that perhaps, yes, they had a concentration of smoke from the candles, etc. A very white stone, so of course the entire upper layer was, they had taken all that out, and he explains how they are doing away with just so much more than just that upper layer. And this is happening in a lot of monuments in France. The second most serious was the beginning of the restoration of Chartres, the cathedral in Chartres. They did exactly the same. It was a cathedral of light in that spectacular magical darkness, and that was broken. Anyway, he goes on. Let me go on, because I really can't talk about what I don't understand, but he goes in great detail about the light and the stone and so on. And gorgeous semi-transparent alabaster, and they are destroying it. The famous labyrinth of Chartres and its magnificent stained glass windows. When you went in there before they are destroying it with these reparations, you enter into another world. Goes on about this trendy chipping of the stone. Anyway, let me move on from here. Talks about many churches. Goes in detail about very many changes. Anyway, so Another thing they are doing is to hide the mineral nature of the stone. And because in the Gothic we have to work with many concepts in general, in some cases you're dealing with stone crystal. It is a material that in some way is reflecting or conducting a certain type of terrestrial magnetism, or at times recovering a magnetism from, anyway, everything came together and that is being destroyed. Okay, he gives an example of the Greek temples surrounded by wonderful marble columns which are like menhirs, blocks of stone cut and fashioned so as to have a square, tall appearance. A portion of the menhir was inserted in the ground and so on. Okay, my goodness. Okay, then he mentions also another cathedral, the cathedral in Troyes, and from the famous Council of Troyes, yeah, which was held there, and where the Templars, I think, started. Okay. So, what is happening is that the divine on the sacred is being done away with. That is what is being removed. It would seem that what they wanted was precisely to overshadow the divine. These new Marlet, or whatever his name is, this new Viollet-Le-Duc, he says in his videos, and I saw him recording while he's working and they're recording him, he says that he's a non-believer, he's totally secular, moving away from the religious, someone who has to interact with a monument that is perfectly intertwined from the moment you put the first stone with a transcendent meaning. That was the case of Le-Duc, is not the case with him. This restoration had to be trusted to someone who was not openly secular, who was not openly a non-believer, because to enter or to understand sacred art from this side of it, from secularism, from atheism, from laicism, is not possible, because the language of communication is not there. You don't quite understand it. You know, go and do other things. You can build houses, you can build nightclubs in Ibiza, or you can do many, many other things, but you are not the right person to do the restoration of a sacred place. And the blackness, my goodness, everything that they brought in was dark. It's like black. They don't know light. A light is, from those things, is absent. They don't know what faith is. They don't know what hope is. I mean hope in a religious, in the Catholic religious sense of what hope is. I don't mean it in this other way we use the word hope, wish. You know, I hope I was a millionaire. No. Hope in its religious sense. Obviously, he doesn't understand it. They don't understand that vision of the transcendent. They don't understand it. Why? Because if you don't believe in the transcendent, if you don't believe in God, what do you have in common with? For you, life is putrefaction. Okay, that's all it is. In other words, we are matter, we are born from matter, and little by little that matter, which is our bodies, that matter ages, and then it ages more and it ages more, and as it is aging, it is rotting, I suppose. So here we are rotting and rotting and rotting away. That's all. And then we're put on the ground like a dog. There's no. That's fine if that's what you believe. That's fine. You believe whatever you want, but you're not the person to restore a building that is designed for the transcendent, because you don't understand it. There is no kind of hope of light. There is nothing there. There is no vision of the sacred. And so, therefore, you have this blackness, ugliness, culture of death, culture of ugliness. It's a denial of light. And because there is a denial of light, they put all these neon lights there. Instead, very simple, you could have lined them with layers of gold, or artists would know how to bring that about. You have to interpret, excuse me, to have a vision of the sacred with elements, those chairs, that especially the tabernacle, oh my God, and work with the light, the reflecting light, the windows reflecting, collecting, reflecting, multiplying the light. Because we need to understand the transcendence is light, but not neon lights. the neon lights of the casinos. Oh, here's... In the past, our forefathers, thousands and thousands of years ago, had this cult to the sun, light. In the open esplanade of Notre Dame, outside of Notre Dame, in the underground there, they found a statue of Isis. And then they started talking about the idea that Paris, the word Paris, could actually be Par-Isis. Isis. And then you would have Isis in a small boat. And listen, they've been talking about this. I won't go into it right now. But Freemasonry has been doing a lot about this ISIS bit. Okay. The tabernacle. The tabernacle is the Sancta Sanctorum. It looks like a coffin, like a casket. That which is life looks like a 100% funeral thing. Death, the opposite. Are they trying to tell us that this is the death of Christianity? Perhaps that is the message. Look, there is no art there at all. There is some skill, a person who has the ability. He's not an artist. He has the skill and the ability to work in metals. This is a craft. Art is something else. He is a craftsman, period. He is not a true artist. Sculpture in sacred art would have worked in a different way. I guess that to find them today is rather difficult. Macron liked it very much. And there is a video of Macron visiting and him doing work there and explaining to him, oh, because I did this, because then this is bronze, and this is what I did, and this is what I did afterwards, and so on. Look, a person who knows nothing needs to explain nothing. There is nothing to explain. Oh, and in that same video, Macron is Mr. and Mrs. Macron, and then there are 2 or 3 bishops or cardinals, and they're all smiling, nodding, this innate, nodding to everything. Oh gosh. He doesn't need to explain. Words here were not necessary because there is nothing to explain. Nothing. Then there is this relic. I don't know whether I understood this correctly, that the crown of thorns or something to do with St. Louis. I don't exactly know. Do they mean that the crown of thorns is there or something resembling that? In any case, there is this. I don't know whether it is the real thing. I didn't do enough research on it. But anyway, it's a relic there, okay? And he put this, which is a crown of thorns, into that's the only thing that he actually covered. He put it. You don't see the crown. He put all these, all these designs, very, very heavy. But you don't actually see the crown, and it reminds you actually of an eye in the middle. First of all, it's round, and it looks like a darts board. Actually, the darts board, round, and then this circle, the bullseye kind of thing, and then another thing. That is what he did with it. But you don't see the crown, okay? It's like, literally, it's like a bullseye full of all kinds of Rococo stuff. And then within that circle, another circle. Looks like a dartboard. Look. Even if all you have is a nail, a sacred nail, okay, say the sacred nail that pierced the hands of Jesus, sacred something, okay, the best thing is to just leave it there. Imagine it's a nail, okay, just leave the nail there. You don't need a lot of stuff, okay. Obviously covered with, glass screen or something, but it doesn't need anything else. Just leave it there as it is for people to see it. No, he did all this stuff. It's the only thing that's totally covered. My goodness. There is, okay, and then he speaks of the simplicity. We need simplicity, but nevertheless, this crown of thorns is the most overworked, is an absurd, is a horrible thing. When you don't have the language and you don't know what it means, you are obviously going to, be full of contradictions. Okay, so I end with this, that is not, personally, is not as bad as it could have been. If the church continues to be a church, which I am not even sure of that, hopefully, eventually, these modern things that stick out as a sore thumb could be replaced. But the actual building and the architecture was respected. The things that cannot be changed, that was done all right. It seems that experts all agree on that. Is these elements, items that are horrid. So it could have been worse. That is my take on it. Thank you very much. And don't forget to share and like and subscribe and comment. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.